Good evening and welcome to Leadership Conversation. We are here to talk about some interesting topics today, and we want to welcome you back this month with us to the Leadership Conversation. I will share so you'll know who we are. So, again, a good evening. My name is Yvette Owens, and I am of DestinySpeak. Um, and my partner is Edwina Cogdale, and we work with leaders and help leaders to create a healthy culture through leadership development. We focus on leadership development, diversity, equity, inclusion, and change management type of activities and initiatives that will really help that organization thrive and that culture become exactly what you intended to be, living it from the top throughout, even touching your customers. So nobody's questioning at all what you are about and why you do what you do and how you leave them feeling. We want you to make sure you're leaving them feeling really, really good so they will continue to utilize your services. And we also have with us David Gallagher, and David is from Leadership by Design. David, you want to tell us a little bit about Leadership by Design?
David, you're mute.
Yes, I knew that, but it was very eloquent what I just said.
It was
Um,
awesome.
yes, David Gallagher, Leadership by Design, and it's a business that helps clients with leadership development, mostly helping managers become better leaders and leaders with a purpose. And that could be anything from leadership coaching to leadership workshops, helping a team strategize where they're heading, how they're going to get there, what are the implications of that for their organization are, and how do they address that. So happy to be here.
And we're glad to have you. And David is leading our conversation this month, so we're so happy to have him. And then we also have Delpha from DelphaD. And Delpha, share with us more about what you and your organization does.
Sure. So we help leaders achieve their maximum potential while also staying true to their whole and best self.
Awesome, awesome. And throughout the broadcast, you'll see our contact information below. You can reach out to any of us as you would like. So, David, let's introduce. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot my partner, Edwina. Go ahead and
No, you
introduce us.
didn't.
Yeah, I didn't.
No, you said it, my partner Edwina. And I
Okay, yeah,
said,
but we want to hear from you.
hi, I'm Edwina Cogdell from Destiny Speak LLC. Welcome to our, I don't know if it's our fifth or sixth presentation tonight on Leadership Conversations. You're in for a real treat tonight. So welcome, enjoy yourself, and let us know if you have any questions and please participate.
Awesome, awesome. So yes, as Edwina said, please participate. We'll see your comments as you bring them up. We're monitoring Facebook, LinkedIn, and um, well, the YouTube channel. So we'll see if you have comments or if you have questions. We're happy to answer. If they come to you afterwards, we will also be monitoring those sites as well, so we can respond to you because we want to make sure we meet your needs as well. So, David, tag, you're it. So
All
serve up
right.
this topic for us.
All right. And just to follow up on what you just said, if folks, since you can see all of our contact information down there at the bottom of the screen, if you have follow-up questions, if you're watching this, whether even if you're watching it live, but you have a follow-up question, or you're watching a recording on YouTube or some other site, feel free to email us, and we'll all get back to you. Even if we all have different perspectives, we'll get back to you on any of the topics that we ever talk about. And I just think that's healthy because um, it could be a singular topic, but if you have four different people, you could have three or four different perspectives. But that's healthy to hear those different perspectives. That's the essence of diversity, quite frankly. Um, so why are we talking about this topic? This topic is transactional leadership and transformational leadership. And those two categories play a key role in leadership and organizations of all kinds. And when we talk about organizations, we mean anything from a, uh, a large company to a small business to a volunteer organization to a community effort to a religious organization. It runs the spectrum. So when it comes to these topics, you can also boil it down to not just leadership per se, but transactional and transformational communication, because that's the essence of it. It typically gets talked about when it comes to leadership. But so what does that mean? We've all entered those relationships where you want to have a conversation. You're looking for an emotional tie-in. You're looking for some inspiration. But then at the end of the conversation, you realize the other individual or the other group only wanted some data from you. They just wanted information. They just wanted a transaction. They didn't want any kind of emotional tie-in, and they're done. And it's like, oh, I thought there was more to this, or at least I was hoping there would be more to this. That's kind of like the uh, all the LinkedIn invites that I get that I absolutely love. That was not tongue in cheek. Yeah, okay. Uh, the LinkedIn invites that you get that say let's connect. It's like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And then within seconds you get or a message that says, okay, here's what we sell. Are you interested in setting up a call because we'd like to sell you something?
Hmm.
Now, on the one hand, I think we all get that, but on the other hand, oh, this is really a transaction. It's not about a two-way experience. So we've all experienced those kinds of things. So Yvette, Delpha, and Edwina, I'm just looking at you on the order on the screen there. I'm assuming you've all experienced this kind of thing, and how do you feel afterwards when that happens?
It is not the best feeling, David, and especially when you are either trying to reach and connect with a leader or an executive, and you're going in and talking about your career, or you're talking about, next level stuff, talking about an idea that you have, and you just are sitting in front of them and they're shaking their head, and then they say, well, I just kind of need you to get your work done, and not build on that relationship. That is so not a good feeling. You leave deflated and defeated and wondering what's your value in this organization if you can't even have that conversation.
It sounds like it's kind of dismissive of anything that you were interested in. Just go back and please just do your job, so I don't have to spend time with you. And it's the essence of a transaction.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel like you really want to get to know me.
Hmm.
You're not taking the time or the space to really get to know who I authentically am. It's just about, let's get to the task.
Right.
And it is about task completion. It's not about let me help develop you, let me understand what your career trajectory is, your goals, and help you get there, and help you make a difference in the greater organization. It's more about please just go do your tasks, get them done.
Yeah, and
Yep.
then the other aspect of it is when it's maybe a peer to peer or a colleague. Um, you never know when you can reciprocate to someone when there's an exchange, right? So, but when someone's only coming to you and they just want what you have for them at the moment, not realizing that there will be another moment
Mhm.
where we could collaborate, we could make things better. But if I'm only coming from a very personal, individualistic type of approach, or let's just say it a selfish approach, this is what I have in front of me, this is what I need to get done, then it doesn't leave the door open for us to do greater things together
Mm.
or to make even what I'm doing better if you shut that door by only reaching out to me when you need something and not open to me reaching out to you when it's the reverse. And so it, as we've said, it could be leader to, you to your leader, or it could be someone that you are working with, and right now there's something that they need from you, but you know what, there'll be a time when you might need from them. And then there's that third scenario where it's, hey, if we come together and really think about how we can talk through this and work through this, we can integrate and maybe make something even greater than what any of us anticipated individually. So we miss those opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, and I'll reverse this. It happens the other way around because I've had people sit across from me asking for time, and it's really more about, well, maybe I want to go into your organization, or I want you to help me to get into an organization because I need that in my resume. I need to have that in, 2 years worth of that or 3 years worth of that, so then I can move on to my next thing. As somebody that influences that for people, it's very uncomfortable because how can I lend you my credibility in order for you to make that move when you're not even trying to bother with a relationship at all?
Mm,
It's just the ask.
mm,
That's a good point. And you're reminding me of, I was in a networking call, a video call, just probably 2, 3 weeks ago, and this guy was talking about a job that he just got. It was a contract job, so it was going to be a finite beginning and end. But those kind of roles also convert to longer term relationships.
mm-hmm,
And he said, I'm struggling with how do I make the first, I've heard this thing about the first 90 days. How do I make it valuable? And how do I prepare myself and get better? And I could have said nothing, but I do like helping people. So I said, if you want to spend some time together, let's talk. And I could have kept it as a transaction. He may have come in thinking that, oh, okay, so Gallagher's going to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes with me, and then we're done. Uh, or is he going to charge me money? Uh, and none of that was the case. We must have spoken for 45 minutes. But it was about all the avenues to approach your first 90 days, first 6 months, how to position yourself for success. And he couldn't have been more appreciative. And I wasn't asking for anything, but I know now if I ever needed to benefit from his experience, I'm sure he'd be happy to help me. Um, and so it doesn't take much. It's even people that are out of work looking to go to networking calls, and they think, "Am I supposed to say, Edwina, can you help me find a job?" No, you got to reach out to want to help first, and make it an emotional tie-in.
right.
So 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 it's interesting that when we talk about transactional and transformational leadership, it's also just basic communication as well. And the one is just an exchange of information. It's like buying a product at a store, and I think that, okay, well, Delpha was nice. We were very polite with each other, and we made the transaction, and I left the store. Okay, well, that's a transaction. Or maybe she gave me some information that was useful for me. But was there a story behind it? Was there an emotional tie-in? Was there any kind of inspiration? And that's really the difference. Is it just a rational intellectual exchange of information, or is there an emotional tie-in with some storytelling? Uh, what do you have situations where any of you think about uh, spending time either with an individual, a friend, or another leader or an employee at your organizations where you felt like this was an emotional tie-in, this was great storytelling, I bought into this, or even listening to his speech, I bought into this and I was moved by this? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, there has to be emotional tie. We have to have the heart in this, right? We have to care about the other person sitting across from us. And I think that's important, whether it's transactional or transformational. You want to make every experience a good experience, right? Because there are times when it is just a transactional thing, but it's, if, as long as you care about the person that it's across from you, or at least care that you're talking to a human being and not just treating them like the next paper file that you're moving across your desk, then I think that's a step up to where some folks are, right?
Okay.
And I think it's really important now because coming out of what we just came out of last year, there is a lot of emotion. There's going to need to be a lot of empathy and things going forward. And so we have to be able to be aware of when I'm using transactional versus transformational, be able to be strong and know when I'm doing the difference, and then be more willing to lean into that transformational space. Transformational space. Not only so that the individual that I'm working with transforms, but that I do also. When I teach or I coach some of the young people that I've coached in the past, it's not because I get something out of it or I got something out of it just as they did, because of just the experience, because of just the exchange. And so we should want every type of relationship that we have, however we classify, to be similar, right? What I should get something out of that. Either reinforcing what I know, reinforcing that I'm serving good, whatever it could be, but it should transform both of us, and we should be aware of it, or all of us in that circle.
And like to your point, Yvette, so even if you're not getting anything quote unquote directly out of it, but you're giving,
Mm-hmm.
and that fills a spot in you, that's something. And then you feel great about helping that individual, and you know that they've felt good about it. So yeah, that's a good point. So Edwina or Delpha?
So I would say, David, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about transactional, and we had versus transformational. Would you consider them to be mutually exclusive? Like, do you have to be or can you be either one of them at different times? Are they situational?
You know what? I'll take a stab at that. And you guys are bringing to mind an experience I had today. I was talking to somebody I mentor, and for me, they're both transactional and transformational. I'm there to help that person, and to me, the transactional part is the cadence of our meetings, the frequency of talk, the identification of the topic. I look at that as more transactional. The transformational part is the information that we share in those conversations. And some mentorships for me have a beginning, middle, and an end. Some are much longer, or they're permanent. So today, actually, and I think, David, to your point on, and Yvette's point on how the emotional tie brings out the ability to have this connection, and everybody enriches from the connection. We were talking about, hey, next steps. What do you want to do next? I know some people started connecting her to those people. At the end of the conversation, she said something that I thought was very interesting. She said, I've gotten more of this 1 hour conversation and more help and partnership than I have in the years of me trying to manage my career. And I said two things to her. One, it's because you were honest, vulnerable, and genuine and then you were also curious.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what triggered me to help you and help you transform essentially your pathing in your career. So it really goes back to being genuine, be honest, and even I know that I call it out when I see it. Like if I feel like it's very transactional and I'm frustrated by it, I will say this conversation is frustrating me.
Yeah, I'm going. David, is it okay if I bring up your next slide where you start to share
Yes.
some of the comparisons? And as
Yes.
I'm doing that, I think to Edwina's question, I see them as situational. Um, there's times when I have to be very direct. I have to do some of these things that David's going to talk us through from a transactional perspective versus the transformational. But David, go ahead and help us talk us through this.
And so I just put two quick slides together. There's only two, folks, for anybody who's listening. This is not a death by PowerPoint session. Um, but it was just to ground everybody in, okay, what are some of the key differences? And we could go on and on a little bit more, but I just put some basics down. So, and I love the questions that Edwina was asking. And is it situational? Is it the same person or is it two different people? Can you be both? Or is it a continuum? Is transactional good in one situation, transformational good in another situation? So let's start with so transactional on the right hand or left hand side there. So tends to be more bureaucratic. If you flip it over to transformational, it's more about inspiration. It's more about vision. Where are we heading? And I want you to buy into where we're heading. If you go down to the transactional on the left, next bullet, organizing, controlling, short-term focus. It's classic, old school, and not that this is bad. I'm just saying it's classic, older school management. Get it done. Do this. It's kind of like one of my favorite sport is football, but it doesn't matter about the sport. And it is not just about sports either, but it's, I'm going to tell you what to do. I expect you to do it, and I expect you to do it well and work really hard. And if you do it well, I'll reward you. And if you don't, you're not going to play. Mm-hmm. So it's very transactional. There are some famous professional football coaches and college who were very, very successful, and the nature of their approach was transactional. Mm. So there are roles where transactional comes in very handy. If the four of us are working in an emergency room, yeah, one of us better take charge and one of us better dictate what's going to happen. Now, granted, behind the scenes, there's been a lot of training. We debrief our situations, but in the moment, in the heat of the moment, because I also worked with patients in psychiatric hospitals, so there were times where, even though I'm not transactional by nature, I had to be directive. Mm-hmm. Because you don't have time. It's a crisis. You need to be directive or somebody's going to get hurt. But the focus is very short term, and we're reacting to a situation in all those situations. And how do I motivate you? Rewards, punishment. I manage by the exception. You didn't follow the rules. You didn't do what you were told. You didn't do what we practiced. You didn't do what we discussed about the approach on this surgery, etc. Transformational.
And David, before you move off of that, again, there's a place and time and place for that, right? Like in the medical field, I mean, there's consequences to not following and being compliant. And those consequences could lead to life and death or, some serious injuries. So, to your point earlier, there's times and situations where you need to have that in order to be effective.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing of that. If something ever happens to me medically, bring me a transactional leader.
Exactly.
You don't want me working on you?
I need you to be transactional at that point. This is not the time to talk about the vision to heal everybody in the world. Not right now. I just need you to concentrate on me.
And follow the rules. Follow the rules.
Please.
I'll follow the rules and I'll heal you. And then we'll move on. But that's the same as the military when you think about it. It's like,
exactly.
Yes, there's a ton of training that goes on and there is some good leadership that's taught in the military, but we're in the heat of the moment. And if everybody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, and you don't do what I tell you to do, or whoever the leader is tells you what to do, somebody might die. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem. So you prepare for those situations. Now, you could take it to, okay, we finished the crisis in the emergency room, or we finished the first half of the football game, or we finished a battle in the military. And I'm not equating all those things as though they're the same thing. But when it comes to transactional versus transformational, there's the time for the debrief. It's kind of like the crisis with the pandemic in the organizations that you guys work in or other people work in. Okay, we think we did the right thing. It's time to take a break and say, okay, wait, what did we learn? What could we have done better, differently? Did we react quickly enough on this? And nobody could have anticipated a pandemic. I get that. But stuff happens in life all the time that's unexpected. Stuff happens in leadership all the time that's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly and how well do we adapt, and how do we bring our people up to speed to be able to adapt? And we do that with, when you talk about transformational, it's creating a positive environment. We're reinforcing there's value in change, and be open to change. We're not reactive all the time. We're also proactive. We're thinking long term. We're not just thinking short term focus. um,
And to your point, David, even in those scenarios, while they had to be transactional, I saw a real, to Delpha's point earlier, a real blend. They were reaching out and caring and saying, "How are you doing? Here's the steps we have to take, but I want to know how you're doing, how you're adapting, things like that." So sometimes you do have to blend it.
and I think that's one thing that pandemic has taught a lot of leaders, because it brought a personal nature into leadership. It used to be, oh, Delpha's working from home. Is she out cutting the grass? Is she walking her dog? Is she really working hard? What's she doing?
I can tell you I'm not cutting the grass. It's not my job.
Well, you haven't cut mine lately, so I'm guessing that's the issue. Um, and but also, I remember years ago with situations like that, even if you were only on a teleconference, but you heard a dog bark in the background, or you heard a child say something. It's like, what are you doing? This is not professional. Now people have realized from a personal nature that, okay, I'm surprised my cat hasn't come up here and jumped up behind me, because she tends to when she hears voices on the computer. Well, that's another issue. But anyway, um, but it's personalized. It's personalized a lot of
Yes.
things, and people realize that, okay, let me give you some space. Let me give you some room for some intellectual stimulation. Let me find out. I think to Delpha's point earlier tonight was, where do you want to be? How do you want to grow? And let me help you get there. A transactional leader is not focused on that. A transactional leader is just what Delpha said. Okay, that's great. So go back and get the tasks done. The focus is not necessarily on, where do you want to develop.
So should
What
I?
what other, before we go on to the next slide, what other reactions do you have to any of this so far?
So, David, would you think that the transactional transformational is tied to personality styles at all?
I would say it could be a little bit, depending upon my focus. If you think about DISC as an example, if I, now again, I'm talking in extremes. You
Mhm.
know, I've seen people teach DISC, which I did recently, and they talk about it as though you're only one of those four quadrants. So for people's benefit who have not heard about DISC before, if the one style is dominant, excuse me, and focused on tasks, some people make it sound like, oh, that you're only dominant. No, I'm still a human being, so I have blends of the other styles, and but that gets complicated and mushy. So sometimes people struggle with that. So it's easier for some people to talk about the extremes, just like this. It's easier for us to talk about, oh, you're the extreme transactional or the extreme transformational.
Mhm.
Nah, I'm a little bit of both sometimes. And sometimes I go from the extreme on one to the other, because I can do that. Other times it's the situation, like you guys said, that requires a certain style. Um, but if I'm a driver and I'm focused on tasks, might I stop enough to think about, well, Edwina, what do you want to get out of this? What are your career ambitions? Where do you need development? I'm just thinking about, can you just get the task done?
Yeah.
Because that's my motivation. What do you think about that?
And I'm thinking too, David, there are people that are very task oriented to begin with. And then there's other people that are relationship oriented.
Yep.
So that right there would put you on either, where you're most comfortable,
Yep.
put you with, within the versus type of situation. Because
Yep.
we do know people, they're all about getting, I got to get this done. Okay.
Yeah.
And if bodies occur, people get killed in the meantime of you getting it done, they still consider it successful. Then you have other people that the relationship is first. It's very important that I maintain that and keep that. So I see that coming in too. And those are personal styles that would impact that.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
And I think when we look back at your slide here, under the transformational is like being inspirational and creating positive and valuable change. Even if I'm in a transactional mode, I have to get it done. We have to be compliant. If I can introduce some inspiration there, then I may get better quality. I believe you're going to get better quality. You could get it quicker. You could might at least on time when you expect it, right? And everybody's going to feel good about even being in that scenario where we just have to get it done because I am coming from that inspirational, being proactive. We sell it, that you know what, if we get this done, then we're going to be in a great position for XYZ that we have to deal with next month or next quarter. So it's all how you present it. And if you come from that transformational perspective, even if you're in a transactional mode or a
Mhm.
transactional situation, I
Mhm.
believe you can get a better, far better quality and a product and an outcome. And to where we focus, a better culture where people will want to come, give and give and give their best.
Good points. Have the three? I'm assuming at least a couple of you have. Have the three of you heard about the book by Simon Sinek? Uh, Start with why.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And why is that? I'm not trying to make a I'm not trying to make a joke, but why is that? Because it's so important.
Mhm.
That's what helps connect to me emotionally and intellectually to where we're heading. That's the person that we've all been around who says, "Oh, I know where she's headed. I know where he's headed. I want to go there too."
Mm-hmm.
What's the mission of this nonprofit organization? I want to be part of that. I want to make a difference in my community. That's
And David,
different.
even in your military example, there is a mission
Yeah.
and there is a vision.
Yep.
And people will accept transactional requests because they understand the mission and the vision for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you haven't stated that up front, you're going to have trouble. And I equate it to when we're little kids, it's real easy for our parents to tell us not to do something. You go on time out, the whole nine. You become a teenager and now you need the why. And it's maturity. It's maturity of the relationship, it's the maturity of the group that really affects that point. Nobody's going to follow you if you just say, do it because I told you so, because I know better. They will follow you if you say, let's do this together. And here's why it matters. And give them a why, not just a why. I would further say, and what's in it for you.
I like what you're saying, Delpha, because even if it is a transactional thing that you're doing, if you can somehow, as the leader, connect it to the overall vision or mission. And I've heard this story a thousand times about when they were years ago when they were trying to put the first man on the moon in the United States, and somebody talked to a janitor there, and they said, well, what are you doing? Well, he could have said sweeping, mopping. He said, I'm putting a man on the moon,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because he connected it to that, right? So that's what we have to do. And another thing, when I think about the inspiration piece that you had up there, David, a lot of times when I do leadership teaching and I'm trying to help leaders come up with what the vision is for their department or their organization, that's where a lot of people really struggle,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
trying to put something together that will get people out of bed in the mornings and help them to persevere and be resilient as things come against them. That can be really hard for people to fathom in their minds.
Right. And when we
What?
talk about, I'm sorry, when we talk about even so, I know we've been talking about the leader's perspective, but also the contributor perspective. If I'm joining something, I should be asking those kind of questions. I should be looking
Yes.
for that kind of information, so I'm connecting to a vision or mission that I can really connect with, because it's all, and we all live through it. It's harder once you're in there and you're like, oh, they're about this. And it's like that's not what I'm about. That's not how I feel. That's not, and so now you're in a situation that's very contrary to your values and your objectives. But you're right on it, Weena. The leadership has to have a clear vision and be able to articulate it so people can embrace it.
And so I love that example about the custodian,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I've heard that before. And that's, I think, a failure of some leadership when they dismiss the importance of every role,
Hmm.
or not every role, I don't mean it that way, of some roles in an organization, or they never bother to try to connect them. Do you know what you're really doing here for us?
Hmm.
Do you understand? You play a role. I don't care if you think it's small, medium, or big, you play a role.
Yeah.
Not that I would necessarily say it that way, but um, whatever role you think you play, you need to understand how it fits into the bigger picture.
Hmm.
And there is value in what you do, or we would not want you here. We would not need you here. So there is value in what you do. So don't minimize it.
Hmm.
Um, and I would also say, even if I'm in a situation or an industry or whatever where transactional leadership is the go-to, if I can't tell you why we're doing something, that's a problem. And I should predict that. I should tell you right away. Okay, by the way, here's why we're doing it this way. Or if I didn't have time because we were in a crisis, I'm going to tell you afterwards. If I sounded harsh, I apologize. Here's why we did it. Here's why we did it so quickly. Here's what the benefit of that was.
Yes.
Uh, I've been labeled at times in my career as, oh, well, he's resistant to change. Where'd that come from?
Hmm.
Well, you were kept asking questions. I said, yeah, I want to know why. So
Right.
I'll change tomorrow, but I just want to know why and how it fits in. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I was thinking too, David, and when I look at your polar opposites there, I prefer to work for a transformational leader.
Hmm.
That's what pumps. I mean, it can be the craziest vision because I just believe it should be bigger than what you could possibly, come up with yourself. Say that you're going to be the best at whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
Put it out there. That stuff really gets me, pumped up and ready to go. Say we're going to eradicate something. I like that kind of language. So I enjoy going to work for someone who I believe is a transformational leader. When I have someone that has more of a tendency towards transactional, I struggle in those roles.
So let me make it personal. So for the three of you, um, when you think about your experiences in life, where you've worked around a transformational leadership or a transformational leader who was able to inspire you, show you the vision, show you how you fit in, how did that change not only how you felt, but how you performed?
So you take on, I think, greater ownership. You feel really, and I know we use this word all the time, but you really do feel empowered, right? It's like, and you really feel support. I felt supported, because it's like, one, you trust me, so you've given me this opportunity, and you brought me in, and you care. And we said this earlier. You care about what I think. You care about what I'm bringing to the table. You see value in it, and you care about how we can blend this together with everyone else in this space, that we're going to create something, to Weena's point, far bigger than what we could have done by ourselves. And the way I know that is when I'm stepping into space that I'm like, okay, they gave me this opportunity, but I have no idea how I'm going to get it done.
Yes.
When it's that scary kind of stepping out, you feel like you're stepping out on the water, right? Then I know, yeah, this is a good place because now it makes me rise up. I'm going to transform, even personally. Even if the leader's not going to help me, I'm going to overcome this and I'm going to conquer it because it's something bigger. It's a new space of where I haven't been. So yeah, that's how it's made me feel.
Delpha or Edwina, anything else on that?
Transformational is my favorite space to be in, around people that are pushing the envelope, breaking the ceilings, pushing things forward, moving the needle, whatever you want to call it. Like if you're sitting in a space, at least for me, if I'm sitting in a space or work that is just push the button and get it done and push the button and get it, I can't. I will walk away because it eats at my soul. And if that's, I've had that moment where it's like, OMG, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. This is not in my wheelhouse. I'm going to have to figure this out as I go. And that nervous, scared energy is, to me, the best possible fuel to ignite real transformation in an organization and in the people in the organization.
And that's because you're adding to that wheelhouse, right? So I'm
Yes.
adding more to my toolbox. I'm adding
Yeah.
more to who I am. And when we can add more, I can add more to you and I'm adding more to myself. That's transformational.
Yes.
And what I would add to that, just be, don't, a transformational leader can be a tough leader to work for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because like the one transformational leader that I worked for was very, he had high expectations. He wanted things done, towards that vision. And how is this helping solve the problem and that type of thing? So I don't want to get anyone the impression that, oh yeah, it's just pleasant over here under the
No.
transformational umbrella.
No.
No, it's not.
But you know what? Also,
He is the person that will tell you. This leader was the person that told me. I thought I had a great excuse about why something didn't get done. And he said to me, here, let me explain something to you. No excuses.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because they're inspirational, because they have high expectations, they will push you and you will go further and do more than you ever thought you could do. There is so much growth. Now, that doesn't mean you might not cry sometime, but
growing hurts. Remember when your knees hurt and your elbows hurt? Growing hurts. Even as adults, it's painful. I will tell you, Edwina, that's such a good example. And really smart leaders know their limits. Not everybody's transformational. There are some people that are super transformational. There are people that are in between. There are people that are very transactional. But a smart leader knows their limits and surrounds himself with people that can have that vision for them, that can provide that other layer. And so if you're out there thinking, gosh, I'm not there yet, you may not have to be there yet. You just might need to surround yourself with the right people that have those skills so that then you can be there together.
And I'll pick up on a thing that a couple of you kind of referenced, and I'm going to go back to the custodian. It is probably way too easy, even if we are working in a transformational environment with a transformational, and when I say it that way, that means the culture needs to be a bit transformational.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm transformational, but the culture around me is not, that's going to be hard. I can do it in my small group, but I'm going to have to say at some point, yeah, this idea is not going to fly because they don't like ideas that are different from what they've already done.
Right.
But if I treated that custodian as, okay, you're just sweeping floors. I'm minimizing it on purpose. You're just sweeping floors, so you don't care. You don't really need to know how you fit in. You're sweeping floors. For that individual, it's not mind-numbing if they know when they go there, no, I'm not sweeping floors. I'm helping us get to the moon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's hugely different. Just looking at the time, you want to put up the last slide,
Sure.
um, just to see what was there. So we probably talked about some of these already, but transactional on the left there. There is a chain of command. Again, back to the hierarchy. I'll just go down the list here. It's about setting goals, expectations, focus on efficiency. I'm just going to tell you what to do, get it done. The focus is in the rules, the procedure. Uh, you have another idea how to do it, Delpha? I'm sorry, no. That's not how we do it here. You do it this way. I remember doing a job as it was a summer job in high school. It's like, could I do it this way? No, David, you asked too many questions. Just do it the way I told you to do it. Okay,
You know
well,
what? You know what, David? We do that with interns. People take an intern in and just think an intern is meant to be a transactional person that's supposed to just get a couple of things done while they're there. Do you imagine how much different the workforce would be if we just started with interns and made that transformation versus giving them tasks because this is stuff we don't want to do, so you get to do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Are there some more papers that you can pull staples out of? Okay, that's an old joke, but but it's a real one, by the way. So I like that point. That's a great one. And I approached the summer interns that worked with me as, okay, you're going to school. I went to school back in the dark ages. What would you do with this situation?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I did that for two reasons. I did it for stretching them, but I also did it for maybe three reasons. Showing them I'm not pretending I know everything, but I also said, so what could I learn from you based upon your current education? So if you flip some of these to transformational, my focus is now not on a hierarchy. My focus is on, I want to inspire and develop you, not up, and this is the difference between servant leadership and transformational leadership. Servant leadership can be very, very, very similar to transformational leadership, and they're often used interchangeably. Servant leadership is more about me developing you as an individual. Transformational leadership is more about me developing you to rise to the greater good and do the better thing for the organization. It's all about the organization's benefit. It helps you also. It's not to dismiss you, but it's about the organization. It's not about any one of us as individuals. And that's that. So to the extreme, that takes a lot of maturity. Peter Drucker, who I always liked, management theorist for years, he lived into his 90s, but he coined a phrase called intellectual integrity, which simply meant you're not doing this for you. It's not about you. It's about what's the right thing and the best thing for the organization. What does the organization at this stage in time need from its leader?
Yeah. So you are right. We are like just have a few minutes left. So if I'm not one way or the other, or if I'm struggling in this space, what would you guys say? How do I start to get there? How do I even start moving in this direction?
Good question. So this is great. What do I do if I want to get better at it? So
Right.
what are your reactions?
I will tell you, self-awareness is key. And you need to see yourself in the moment. Are you going to react in a way that's going to make you look, feel, and sound transactional? Or are you willing to take a step back? And I caught myself today in a conversation. I was about to say, we're just going to do this, people. And I stopped. I took a breath. And then I said, I know we're all frustrated right now. I am frustrated. Understand that the ultimate goal is to get there. There are some things that we can't negotiate, but let's find the things that we can. So let's just switch for a minute and let's work together so that we can all buy in on some of these decisions together, because I'm about to go down this path and tell you we're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. It's been 45 minutes. It's an hour call, and we're still bickering about it. And that just changed the conversation. So really being self-aware and vulnerable to yourself in that moment is what's going to make the difference.
That's a great point, Delpha, because, and this is all a learning curve. It's like learning any new behavior or that you may not be used to or just not used to thinking about constantly. Uh, because you do think about that stuff, but you can easily get caught up in the moment of, we just got to do it, get it done, get it done. But wait a minute. Okay, why are we doing this? Okay. And sometimes you have the answer. And I know sometimes I've asked for, okay, why are we doing this? I don't know. Really? Uh, and this is a senior person? Okay. Um, the more we can help those folks fit in and understand the mission and the rationale for it, the better. So what else should we focus on to try to get better at being transformational to the extent we need to?
Well, I think we talked about it being situational. So I
Yeah.
think it takes a personal assessment to look at what is your personal situation. What is your job? What is your role? What are you responsible for? What does it require there? Right? Because we did talk about it being situational. And what I would say, I agree with Delpha around the self awareness, but start involving other people. Ask others what they think about your leadership style, because maybe you think you're transactional, but people may see you as transformational. So find out. So once you've got your own self awareness, and here's what I think, invite others into the conversation to say, here's where I see myself, here's where I'd like to get to, and get their feedback. Now, remember, there has to be a level of trust there before they'll tell you exactly the truth, right?
Yep.
So, but books, there's tons of literature out there that you can look at that will talk to you about both of these types of leadership styles. I think that would be appropriate as well.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. We have to constantly want to learn because you might not have it exemplified before you in your leadership, but you're a leader to others, right? So, how, if if we want to get better at anything, we just have to go and figure it out, right? And just, so there, to Edwina's point, there are tons of information out there, resources around this. There are examples of people who live this life and breathe it, this type of style. So, and don't give up. Keep growing. Keep learning. Keep stretching. Just as, because one of those core values of a transformational is this, we're stepping into that scary space, right? So, do it. If you can do it for yourself, then you'll be able to help your team get there as well.
And one or two quick comments. If you're trying to become better at being a transformational leader, just know that there are senior level people in a variety of functions that do not understand what it means, that confuse it with other terms. I've seen it firsthand and I was amazed. I was amazed so much at one point, I looked it up on the internet because I thought, maybe I'm wrong. And it's like, okay, no, I'm not. All right, good. Okay, so and that was several years ago. But anyway, the other thing I would say is if I had to recommend a couple things to get better at transformational leadership, it would be listening, asking questions, and listening, taking in other people's. And I think one of you mentioned this just a bit ago, but taking in other people's ideas and seeing how they work. But if I don't listen to you, I don't know where you're coming from. And if I don't know where you're coming from, I can't help you get where you want to go. It sounds so simple, but it really is in a sense. Especially if I'm a leader of an organization and I used to do the job of the in the group that I'm talking to, well, I should know darn well what their typical kind of challenges are going to be, expectations, what they're worried about, what they want to hear. I should know that already. I should know it intimately, and I should speak to that and tell a story about it. So,
Yeah, and I think we've kind of, the conversation has been more like, how do you move from transactional to transformational? You can have those leaders that just can't get to the transactional piece, and then that decision is still waffling out there, and people are like, there's a time when you need to step in there and say, okay, let's move on. So if you're finding yourself in that space, then again, you can find information around that. David, awesome, awesome, awesome conversation. Thank you so much for leading us through this. It's been transformational.
Uh, and just as a reminder, there are times for both,
Absolutely.
and we as individuals can work on that continuum. But remember the custodian at the Space Center.
And
I
I
don't
would
care.
say, and to David, there's not bad or good. It's just different.
Yeah.
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 Sometimes people want to make, oh, this is bad. No, it's just
No.
different. It's just different.
Vince Lombardi was one of the greatest football coaches ever. He was very transactional
Mm-hmm.
and very successful. Just
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, thank you all for joining. We've had several folks on the call tonight. We're hoping even more watch and the replay. Again, share your comments. We do want to share what's coming up. David, let's just do a roundtable of anything that we have coming up, um, so that people know how to continue to stay in contact with us and connected with what the work that we're doing. So, Delpha, did you have anything that's coming up recent soon or within?
No, actually, I just did an internal podcast for a community of folks that I consider friends, and that was great. And we'll continue to do the blog. I should have another blog in the next couple of weeks coming out.
Awesome, awesome. And if you follow Delpha, you'll see all her blogs, her podcasts, and things like that. David, how about you?
I am doing. Let me think about it here. So next weekend, I'm a judge for that tri-state, so Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, SHRM. SHRM is an HR
Yep.
group for anybody who doesn't know that. But we were judging the results of undergraduate and graduate students' reactions to a case study and what they would do about it at a fictitious company and a fictitious problem. And I've done that before. So I'm doing that. I'm also doing a presentation with some high school students who are in the youth manufacturing pipeline initiative. So students who are not going into college, but instead going into manufacturing right out of high school. And how do they prepare for that? How do they position themselves for that and interview for that? So
Awesome. And I want to share with you, Edwina, if you can just tell a little bit about Edwina and I are going to be doing some additional webinars that you'll be invited to. And so the first one coming up is on May 27th at 7 p.m. And she's gonna be talking about the 5 ERG myths and truth. So did you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So ERGs are employee resource groups. They may be called affinity groups in your organization, or diversity networks. They're called different things. And this really has to do with my dissertation research, where I'm going to share some of the things that I've uncovered during my research process. So I look forward to having that discussion. It'll be about diversity and inclusion.
Right. So you'll look for that link. You'll register for that. It will be free. So you register for it, and we'll be able to get you signed up for that. And then I have a book coming out called No Bosses Allowed, Lead to Serve, the board game for the great leaders. So that's coming out soon. It's an ebook, so you can watch for that to be released shortly. So we're all in the same, we're all got things going on. Stay connected with us so that we can continue to share our experiences with you. Thank you for joining, and we hope you have an awesome evening. Again, please stay safe, and we're thanking you for again for visiting with us this evening, spending time. We look forward to seeing your comments. Thank you. Bye bye.
thank you. Take care.